Like social media makes it seem as though you take on a property, you're going to be making £1,000 every single month. Your life is perfect, but the truth is if people are being honest, like it's not like that. This January was probably the most difficult time in my whole time since I had a business. What's going on, guys? My name's Izzy. Everyone knows me as Izzy Properties. And yeah, this is one of my properties. So this is one of my rent-to-rent units. It's in Southeast London. It's actually a 2-bed property. And yeah, it's been doing really, really well. As you can see, the place is a bit messy because I guess left not too long ago. I've got cleaners who are going to come in probably about an hour or two. So yeah, just look around. Pretty nice condition. I've taken on some properties that haven't been in a decent condition, but this one was in an all right condition. So I didn't have to spend too much. I think all in all, I probably spent about £7,000 on this whole place. So that's the furnishing, that's the rent, that's the deposit and things like that. So yes.
But before we go into like the furnishing and stuff, like how did you take on the property? So like you said you took it on. What does that mean?
Okay, so when I say I take it on, so my company, we agree contract with a landlord. So we have this property on a long-term let. And in the contract, it allows us to use this property for short-term rentals like Airbnb and things like that. So that's essentially what I do.
So that's rent to rent, right?
Exactly, rent to rent. That's what we call rent to rent. So renting a property and then legally allowing to rent it out.
Okay, so and then obviously, so you're taking the property on now.
Yeah.
So what is left to do? Like, can I just get any property and then just be like, yeah, it's on Airbnb now? What is the process to that? Because you said you spent £7,000. What am I spending £7,000 on?
Yeah.
Is it the curtains? Is it the furniture? Like, what is it?
So to be honest, I think social media probably makes it seem 10 times easier. So it's not just taking on any property. You have to do your whole due diligence, like the area. Is it a good area? Like transport links, like parking, things like that. So first of all, you need to know what's around the area. You won't just pay £7,000 on anything because again, you could spend money on a property and it not do well. Like there was one property that I took on, probably my worst performing property. That property I was losing probably over £1,000 a month because I didn't do the due diligence on that property. So yeah, man, I think it's all about actually studying the market, knowing what's around the area, because again, yes, you can make money, but you could also lose money. Okay,
so you mentioned like there's a lot to do before you even take on the property.
Yeah.
Like what? So if I was starting from scratch, if I'm a newbie and I wanted to get into this, like what would you say like the first like 2 steps are? So I've started my company now. I've paid my £12.
Yeah.
Where do I go from there?
The first thing I'd say, research the area. Like one thing I always do, I'm on Google Maps. If somebody sends me a postcode, the first thing I'm looking at is Google Maps. I'm checking how many hotels are nearby that area, what shops, what amenities are near that area, transport links, how close is it to the nearest train station, the nearest bus stop. If from this property, the nearest bus stop is literally right there. So it's literally about, 10-second walk. Okay. So these are things that I take into consideration. I like properties that are at least 2 bedrooms upwards, again, because you can accommodate more people. That's not to say that studios or 1-beds don't work, because they do. But for me, I just prefer 2 beds and upwards.
So what would you say like is the most important thing? So if you had to pick between like, let's say like a train station or like some sort of like activity place like the O2, for example, like what is the most important thing that you would say if you're looking to take on like a short-term let like type of place? I think
train station, because one of my properties, my best performing property, that is not near any big amenities or anything, but it's not far from a train station and that property does really well. So I think a lot of people, especially in London, they want to know how quick they can get to central London. So yeah, for me, when taking on a property, try and find how close it is to a train station. And yeah, that's a big factor.
Okay, so you mentioned taking on properties in London. Are there any rules that would stop me from taking on any properties in London? Is like, for example, I think there's like a 90-day like rule where I can't do something in London for 90 days or something like that. What is that?
Yeah, so basically there's a 90-day rule, and that's meant to limit the length of time that you can basically let out a property on for short-term rental. Okay. But again, with the 90-day rule, there's so many ways around it. For example, you can have multiple listings. You can take direct bookings. You can list on so many different platforms. Airbnb is actually the main platform whereby they track the 90 days. But other platforms like Booking.com, they don't really track it as much. Okay. So yeah, to be honest, there's so many ways around the 90-day rule.
Can I take bookings directly?
You can take bookings directly. That's exactly what I do. I have a website and people pay me directly for
What's your website?
It's
shameless plug, man. Shameless plug.
It's like ezzyproperty.webook, blah blah. But honestly,
rich guy don't even know his own website.
Honestly,
okay, let's carry on. Next one.
This is just the bathroom. This property is a 2-bed property. It can sleep probably 5 people. So there's a double bed there. There's a single bed here. There's actually a sofa bed here. all my properties, they have a sofa bed. Again, sofa bed allows me to accommodate more people. And there's also a spare mattress as well. So again, this allows me to accommodate up to 5 people in a 2-bed house.
So did all this sofa bed and everything come with the
I
property?
bought this myself. So I got this from Facebook Marketplace.
Yeah.
A lot of my sofa beds I get from Facebook Marketplace. Again, because you can negotiate a decent deal. And if I was to get it from anywhere else like IKEA, I'll be probably paying double the price.
Okay.
So I got this from Facebook Marketplace. This mattress wasn't even meant to be here, to be honest. This is another thing when you're getting it from Facebook Marketplace. I got these mattresses from Facebook Marketplace and they gave me the wrong size. So I had to end up ordering another one. So yeah, this one is still here. But again, the guests love it. So yeah, this property, nice. Got nice views of the outside. It's just a nice little cute place, man. 2-bed, nice little accommodation. So yeah, man,
so
I like this one.
When we speak about like setup costs and like everything, like, so you've taken on the property. So what happens with the rent in terms of that? Like, obviously it's not your property. So who do you pay the rent to? How long are you paying it for, etc.? And then what comes with the furnishing? So you said you pay $7,000. Like, what, if you really go into detail about like what is this $7,000 for? Okay. Because people could spend $7,000 on a bed and then that's it. And that's not really going to get you very far. Do you know what I mean?
Of course. So this property, off the top of my head, I think the rent is about $1,750, but let's just say for calculation, say $1,800. Okay. So 1 month rent, 1 month deposit. So that's $1,800 times 2. That's $3,600. Then you're going to furnish it. Like these chairs as well, like they're quite expensive.
These ones, yeah?
Yeah, the chairs and the table, because I went for a decent look, they're quite expensive. So all the furnishing, all the beds, everything, all the mattresses, all of that together, they come up to just probably under $7,000. But majority of my properties, they'll be around that price.
Okay, so this place looks well put together, I'll be honest. Do you get interior designers to come in? Like, do you know someone? Like, you get, like, how does it work?
To be honest,
because you don't walk into IKEA and see stuff like this and be like, I'm just going to take that. Like, do you spend time like upskilling yourself to kind of learn little things to improve your business?
I'll be honest, to be honest, it's I can't even take all the credit for it, man. My brother, he's very skilled at it. My partner, she's very good at it as well. So yeah, man, I can't take all the credit for it, man.
No, it makes sense. So obviously we've spoken about, so you've acquired the properties now, and you say which how many of these properties do you have?
So 12
properties. Yeah. So that's a lot of money coming out your bank account every month.
It is, bro. It is, man.
So how does that work? Like, for example, because obviously you're gonna have voids, you're gonna have times where people aren't booking, times where people aren't renting your properties. So like, is that stressful for you?
Bro, it can be very stressful, and that's what they don't show you on social media. Like, social media makes it seem as though you take on a property, you're going to be making £1,000 every single month. Like, your life is perfect. But the truth is if people are being honest, like, it's not like that. With Airbnb, short-term rentals, like, it's very seasonal. Like, for example, this January was probably the most difficult time in my whole time since I had a business. Like, with all my properties that I have, I probably guarantee about 16K a month. Altogether, including bills and everything, that's probably at least 25K. So 25K every single month has to come out of my account. So January was a time where there wasn't many bookings, and I still had to guarantee that rent. And January, February, those 2 times together, February started to pick up a bit, but those 2 times were very, very slow. And literally last year, because I took on property after property after property, scaled aggressively, I was putting all my profits back into the business. And obviously that meant that the funds that I had behind me were limited, and I didn't anticipate what was going to happen in January. And in January, literally, bro, I was praying every day, say, God, please let there be a booking coming in. And obviously I managed to get through that difficult period. Obviously right now I'm in a completely different space financially, obviously, and I learned from those mistakes. But that January was, honestly, man, it opened my eyes, because I really saw why you shouldn't be over-reliant on one strategy. And after that January, I literally started, the properties that I have, I mixed up. Some of them, I've given them to support living. Some of them are targeted slightly longer term bookings and offering bigger discounts, you know. But yeah, when you're guaranteeing rent, there's a lot of things that social media doesn't really show you, because there's a lot of risk and there's a lot of headache, there's a lot of pressure that you're on. Because at the end of the day, it's your reputation that's on the line. So yeah, man, that's why I always tell people, listen, when you want to go into Airbnb and short-term rental and things like that, just make sure you actually know what you're doing, you know, and whether that's in the form of research, education, mentorship, whatever, just make sure you actually know what you're doing, because social media is a deception, bro.
So you mentioned supported living. So so let's say I've taken on a property now like this one. Like, how do I go through the process of giving it to like a supported living company? So
with supported living companies, it's more about who you know. You know, I was very fortunate. So I took on a property and I thought it was going to be doing so well. That property ended up I was losing probably about £1,500 a month. So yeah, that property was a lot of stress. But fortunately, it was a big property and it was right close to a station. And I met someone who had a support living company, or she still has a support living company, and she said, "Listen, I'll guarantee your rent." So that property, I paid the landlord 1,600 a month, and her company pays me 2,900 a month, and she deals with everything. I don't need to do anything. So again, I went from losing 1,500 a month to basically clearing £1,000 profit every single month.
So is that a rent to rent to rent to rent?
It's basically rent to rent squared, bro.
Rent to rent squared. So we're doing rent to rent inception. Okay, cool. Okay, cool. So that makes sense. So why have you chosen this route? Because obviously there's a lot of different property strategies and whatnot. Like you've got your buy, refurbish, refinance, etc. Like, why did you choose this route? And obviously you was working at the time as well. So did that play a factor in it? Did you have a lot of time? Is this still a side hustle? How does it all work? Like, how does it all mesh together?
So you know what it is? It's like, I didn't want to start rent to rent. I think the only reason why I started rent to rent is because I failed at sourcing. Like, I was trying to source deals. I was trying to source deals for 8 months. 8 months, literally couldn't source a single deal. And I was on the verge of literally just quitting for property. Then one of my friends, he done rent to rent, and he was like, you know what, why don't you try and jump on it? And obviously I thought, you know what, it's going to be too time consuming. I play football, work in a school full time, obviously do modelling here and there and things like that. So I was like, it's not going to work.
You dropped that one in there, already. He's like, yeah, I'm some model. Yeah, this guy. Okay.
But yes, I didn't think I was going to have the time for that.
Yeah.
But you know what, after trying to source rent to rent deals, I was like, let me try it. And then literally just fell in love with it. And rent to rent works for me because, again, I consider myself a people's person. Customer service, like, it's just part of my life, the things I like doing. And I like being hands-on and things like that. So for me, this works perfect for me. In terms of schools, I only quit my job after deal number 10, and the only reason why I quit is because I literally couldn't do it anymore. Like, it was too difficult. I was dropping in and out of class, trying to answer calls and things like that. A lot of people would have probably quit after 2 or 3 properties, but for me, I wanted to stay as long as possible because, again, I knew I was trying to scale aggressively. So yeah, for me, that was the balance with that. It is difficult, I'm not going to lie, but I feel like with anything, you got to make the sacrifices.
So would you say at that 2-3 properties mark, like, you was earning enough money to quit your job? Like, did that replace your full-time income?
Yeah, I think definitely by deal number 3, I probably could have replaced my income. But again, for me, I don't know if it's just the Nigerian side of me, but for me, bro, like, I'm always at the back of my mind, I'm thinking of money. Like, let me like try and make more money here, more money there. Like, so I wasn't gonna quit. No way after 3 properties.
So you mentioned deal sourcing. Like, so what is? Explain to the people that don't know what that is. Like, what is that?
Cool. So deal sourcing is essentially you finding a deal for an investor. For example, if I had this rent to rent property, I'll sell this onto an investor for example, a 3K fee. Okay. And yeah, they'll pay me for finding a property.
Okay. So what part of deal sourcing did you find difficult? Was it finding the deals? Did you find like you didn't have the network to kind of sell the deals onto people? Like, what part would you say specifically is why you kind of moved from deal sourcing to rent to rent?
You know what it is? With deal sourcing is so much stress, and a lot of people don't actually realize it. I feel like a lot of people see on social media, deal sourcing is the best thing to get into when you're first starting off. But the truth is, deal sourcing, you have to please everyone. You have to please yourself because obviously you want to get a decent fee. You have to please the investor because obviously they want to get a decent fee. You have to please the agent or the landlord. So you're that person stuck in the middle trying to make everyone happy. You know, when I was trying to source deals, there were like on 3 occasions I had to give the investor their whole money back because something happened with the agent. The agent took a bigger deal. And then now you're risking your reputation with an investor by telling them, you know, the deal's falling through and things like that. Okay. So deal sourcing can be a lot of stress. And to me, yeah, man, it's not for everyone, bro.
So would you recommend deal sourcing as the entry level for people to get into it? Obviously, with your experience, like, would you say that is the easiest thing? Or would you say rent to rent would be better?
For me, when it comes to sourcing deals, I would say for anybody at the beginning, I think co-sourcing is much better than deal sourcing. Okay. Like, even now, I focus more heavily on co-sourcing than deal sourcing.
So what's co-sourcing?
Because co-sourcing is, for example, let's say I have a deal and you have an investor. Okay. You already have that relationship with the investor. So I don't need to go out searching for an investor because you've already qualified the investor. Okay. But I have a deal. So then we work together, we will split the fee. Instead of 3K, it'll be 1.5, 1.5, and we sell the deal together. So yeah, it's much easier, man. But a lot of people in property, I don't know, maybe selfish or whether they want the money for themselves, but you know what? Honestly, bro, you can really go further by working with others.
So would you say it's more difficult to find like a worthwhile investor, like a qualified investor, or the deals? Like, what would you say is more difficult? Because from my experience, obviously, like networking with people and stuff, it's harder to find people, reliable people, rather than it is to find places where you can kind of put money. Because they're kind of everywhere. Like, you can go to Thamesmead, you can go to Canterbury, anywhere and find a deal. But to find like a good person, it's difficult. So what do you think, like, from your experience?
I definitely feel like finding an investor is probably more difficult than finding a deal, because the truth is there are actually deals everywhere. So many landlords want to rent out their property, but finding an investor who's ready to move, not going to waste time, you know, those are the harder people to find, because there are a lot of tire kickers out there. They'll waste your time, tell you that they're ready to take on a property, and you show them a deal and they're just dilly-dallying.
Okay.
Yeah.
So obviously we're standing in your kitchen now of your property. Is this something that you had to refurb, or like did it look like this when it came? Was this place like, did you have to do a massive refurb on it? Was it already pre-made? Like what? Talk to me.
So with this place was just mainly just empty, bro. Like,
so we got like nice countertops and stuff. Like, is this your fridge?
I mean,
like,
this already over there. The fridge I had to buy. This I had to buy. Had to be new. And just everything else inside it was just really empty, to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah, the whole house was really just empty. It had some old dusty couch. I had to get that thrown away. Literally. Yeah, man. But everything was in decent condition.
Okay, so you spoke a lot about like when you was deal sourcing and having to please everyone.
Yeah.
So and sort of kind of like being in the middle of like the investor and et cetera, et cetera. So do you not find yourself still in that predicament now? Because you're in the middle of like obviously the landlord which you're renting from, and then on the other side of your business you've got your clientele. So you've got the people that actually come and stay in your property. So you can't really make money if they're not both happy. So how does that work? And is that easier than deal sourcing?
Now, to be honest, I find rent to rent easier than deal sourcing.
Okay.
I think I don't even have to think about my landlords. My landlords know that as long as their property's in good condition, and as long as they're getting their rent, they don't care. Like there's something, like just the other day I met one of my landlords, the one that gave my first property. I met him once in 2 years, and that was just the other day because he wanted to check the boiler, and that was it. Other than that, I don't hear from him. Okay. So to be honest, landlords don't care. They just want their money and they just want peace of mind. And again, that's why they'll go to a company rather than a single tenant, because I can give them that peace of mind. So
that's the value you're bringing to them.
Exactly.
That's what makes sense.
That's why they'll pick a company over a tenant, because a company can probably give them peace of mind, but a tenant will be bringing them every other day. So sometimes.
So on the other side of the business, obviously you've got like the clients, people that stay in your property and whatnot. So what do they look for when they're booking with your company?
No, clients can be stressed, man. They can be a lot of stress, and I feel like that's the cons of rent to rent Airbnb, because you're constantly trying to please a lot of guests, and there's some guests that would book to try and find something wrong just so they can get their money back. There are some guests who will just cause havoc. I've had guests come into this property and just burn the sofa for no reason.
Well, that sofa,
they put a cigarette butt into the sofa for no reason.
Okay.
So I think the guests are the hardest part of the business. But again, that's why I make sure I vet them. Every single person who comes into the property, I vet them. And also with this particular property, the biggest problems I've had is not from the guests, it's from the neighbours. Okay. So the neighbours downstairs, they've had problems with guests who may be playing music a bit too loud. If one of the guests smokes weed or whatever outside, the neighbours will complain saying it's coming from this property. So those are the type of problems I've had, not necessarily from the guests, but from the neighbours. So
what things have you kind of put in place to like for example, like if someone puts a hole in the sofa or put cigarette burns in it, like what can you do to kind of either prevent it or kind of like make up the money off the back of it? Because at the end of the day, like you have to replace the sofa, you have to fix anything that kind of happens. So what do you do to kind of like sort that out on the back end?
Yeah, so to minimise the damages that guests could potentially do in your property, one thing I always do, take their deposit. Okay. I always take a damage deposit. I always check their ID as well. And I make sure all of them sign a rental agreement. Okay. So all those things kind of help me. And also I have a Ring doorbell outside the front. So all those things together kind of minimize the type of guests that I'm gonna, take on. And also another thing is I don't do 1 and 2 night stays. For a lot of my properties, most of them are like 7 night stays, 5 night stays.
As a minimum?
Minimum.
Okay.
I don't do 1 and 2 night stays, because I find that 1 and 2 night stays, you're more likely to have people who are gonna probably damage the property, probably have more parties and things like that. So yeah, for me, again, that doesn't work for everyone, because a lot of people, they'll be like, oh, I haven't had any bookings in like 2 or 3 days because it's on 7 nights minimum. But for me, I've been doing this for some time. Like I know when to change it, I know how to change it and things like that. Like, so for me, I'm ready to take that risk, because at the end of the day, the 1 and 2 night stays with the cleaning fees, it doesn't really make much sense to me.
So you mentioned like you're doing what you can to kind of limit the risk. Like, do you ever feel like you're in a position where there's no risk in business?
Nah, man, I don't. I think in business, I think there's always an element of risk.
Okay.
Like, especially if you want to scale as well, bro. Like everything, there's a level of risk to everything. But I feel like as an entrepreneur, you've got to be ready to take that risk. Because if you're not ready to take that risk, you're just going to stay in the same position. As somebody said, scared money don't make no money.
Yeah.
So if you're just going to, you know, sit there and just put your money in the bank and just expect it to quadruple, like, you're only kidding yourself. So yeah, man, I feel like you just got to be ready to take risks. But I feel like there's a difference between just taking any old risk and taking a calculated risk.
Yeah.
So I feel like calculated risk are what all entrepreneurs need to be ready to take.
So you mentioned about taking calculated risks. So
Yeah,
for a new investor or someone looking to get into this industry, like, what would you say they should do to kind of like limit their risk? Because obviously they're new to business, they're new to property, like, so there's going to be a lot of pitfalls that I'm sure you kind of fell into.
Of course.
So what would you do to advise them, like, for them to kind of like not make the same mistakes you did?
So one thing that definitely helped me massively in my rent-to-rent journey was my mentor, Dammy. Shout out my boy, Dammy. But having a mentor, like, is key, bro, because you know what? They've made mistakes that you don't have to make. Like, I've started mentorship since January, and I've had seven mentees, all newbies, and they've all got properties. And they've been able to minimize their mistakes because I'm able to help guide them. Yeah. And I had that as well in my property journey as well. So that's why I say for anybody starting out, it may not necessarily be mentorship because you might not have the money for mentorship, but I would say you have to educate yourself. A lot of people just think, cool, I have 3-4K here, I'm ready to get a rent to rent. That's honestly, you'll be in for a big shock because it's not just about having the money for a property, bro. There's so many things that a lot of people don't consider. There's a lot of things that social media doesn't show you how to deal with these things. So that's how I always tell people, just get educated. You can watch your videos on YouTube, go to networking events, network with people. And if you have the money for mentorship, explore mentorship.
Okay, so coming into this industry, like, how much money would you say, mentorship included, would you say like you should have to kind of get into it? So obviously, like, you spent $7,000 on like sofas and furnishings, etc. Then you got a guaranteed rent on top of that, and then you said you got a mentor as well. So we're looking upwards of $10,000 here, bro.
Yeah, but I mean, I would say before anything, man, first thing is just investing in yourself, bro. Because before you invest in a property, you invest in yourself, because that's gonna pay you back 100 times. So I wouldn't consider the mentorship as an expense that you're never going to get back, bro, because you're going to reap it. So before anybody considers getting a property, I'll say invest in yourself, whether that's education, whether that's courses, whether that's mentorship. So cool, it might be 3K here, whatever, but you know that once you have that knowledge, you can then go into other things, because once you have the knowledge, you might find someone who has the money, and the knowledge and the money put together, you've got your JV there. So it's not necessarily about always having the money.
JV, what's that for people that don't know?
For example, like people working together on a property.
So like joint venture.
Yeah. So for example, you could have the money from a course or mentorship that you've gained, and you might find someone else who has the money. So you two now work together, and you guys can take on a property together. Okay. So again, this is how some people have managed to get into the property game with little to no money. Sometimes I wouldn't say no money. There's a lot of, people saying you can get into property with no money. I would probably say you need some level of money. You can leverage other people's money, but you would need some level of money.
Okay, so is it always money that's needed to leverage per se? Because like me, for example, obviously I can create content, so I can leverage my content for certain people to do different things. So what would you say are some skills that have value that you can leverage? Like, for example, if I had to say, like, what do you need right now? Who could kind of step into your system and kind of make stuff tick for you? Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I definitely think, and this is again why education is the most important thing, because once you have a skill, like, you can leverage that skill to do other things. For example, you're skilled at videography. I consider myself decent at property. So we can work together. And for example,
you're more than decent, bro. Like, you're being too humble. You're being too humble. We'll go show the car outside and we'll see. Yeah, no, I'm joking.
But for example, you have your skill, I have my skill. We work together. For example, if you wanted mentorship and I was looking to do that, leverage your skill. 100%. I can say, you know what, I could teach you some things, you could teach me some things or whatever, and then we can work together. So again, that's why I say it's so important to be educated, bro, and just own your skill, work on your skill.
100%. So I want to kind of touch on something that's kind of like rife in the business industry. So like when someone tends to have some success, like so let's say for example you when you had your 2 or 3 properties, some people go into the mentorship kind of category things and they parade themselves as like I'm a mentor and I do XYZ without actually having done their due diligence and putting the time in on that side of things, because you know anyone obviously doing the business for as long as you have can walk in and just get a rent to rent. Of course, but it might not work. But I can still say I'm a property investor, etc. So how do you vet mentors? Like how do you make sure people are the real deal? Because obviously like, I'm here with yourself. We're here right now. Do you know what I mean? But at the same time, if I'm sitting at home and I've got money and I'm ready to push the trigger and get mentorship, I can't just turn up at your rent to rent and be like, are you genuine? 100%. So how do you avoid it?
You know what it is?
Do you know? Is there anyone that you would recommend that you know is legitimate? So where you can say go to this person, go to that person.
Of course. So with mentorship is a funny one because there are a lot of people on social media who are just talking nonsense, as in like they're faking it. Yeah. Like they will say one thing, but their company's house says another. Yeah. Like so that's why I think with mentorship, it can kind of you have to see who's practicing what they preach. Of course. You know, for me, there were so many people. I've had 4 different mentors. Okay. And there's so many other people before them that wanted to mentor me. You know, the people that, you know, I consider who've obviously done the thing and they've practiced what they preach. Obviously, my guy Dammy, you know, the reason why I chose him as a mentor is because he was practicing what he preaches. Yeah. There's a lot of guys who they will say this, they will say that they're making 15 grand a month passive income. They don't do anything. That's a lie. Like you're gonna do something. Like people who are saying that they make all this money without sweating or whatever, it's a lie. You are going to work. So for me, I feel like when people are looking for mentors, you need to find someone who practices what they preach, because the truth is a lot of people on social media don't. So
what's some telltale signs of that? Like how can I be like, okay, he has this and this, he's legitimate? Or is there nothing like that? Do I kind of just have to chance it and be willing to lose money?
You know what it is? I feel like when you look at the content that some people are talking, some people are saying, you got to kind of oops. So as I was saying, when you're looking at the content that a lot of these like mentors are showing, like you got to think, what are they actually showing? Are they making their life seem all so perfect, or are they showing some of the negatives that come with it? Yeah. Because anybody who's just saying that property is going to be a walk in the park, it's going to be so easy, bro, they're fooling you. Do you know what I'm trying to say? So I feel like you've got to look at the type of content that they're putting out. Is it educational? Is it something that you can learn from? And if there's an opportunity for you to meet them or have a one-to-one call with them, do you feel like in that time they've added value? You know, all my mentors, before I even went on mentorship with them, I had a call with them. And based on that call alone, I was able to gauge, okay, cool, this person knows exactly what they're talking about. Before I started mentorship, in fact, I didn't even want to start mentorship. I always said mentorship was something I was never going to do. But I had a lot of people reaching out to me.
Why is that? Why did you try and avoid? Because you know how much money you can make just from the mentorship side of things. Yeah. So why is it something that you avoided?
So for me, I didn't want to do mentorship. Like, again, I told myself I was never going to do mentorship. The only reason why I done mentorship, I had a lot of people in my DMs messaging me, asking me for help. I was giving out free advice. And from that free advice, people getting success. And so I was like, you know what? Let me just try this one person. So I tried one person. You know, he was, you know, much older than I was, but he was like, you know, is he like, just help me. So I was like, cool, you know what? I'll just give you a discounted price and I'm just going to put all my knowledge, guide you, everything, and let's just see what comes from it. In 7 days, he got his first deal. And then from then, everything was kind of trial and error. But I was just kind of learning. I was just making sure I was available. Just everything I knew, everything that I could help with, I was able to literally just help him pour into that. And after seeing his success, and then I had more and more people showing interest, I was like, you know what? Let me try it. And then literally, as I said, the proof is in the pudding. Every single one of them have got results.
Okay, so how much should someone expect to pay for mentorship? So like, obviously everyone charges different money depending on like how, like what they've done, etc. But if you had to give like a guide price, like say it's between X, Y, and Z.
I think it varies again, and it varies because based on people's experience and their results.
If you was looking for mentorship and you let's say you had 20 grand, right? Obviously you're not going to spend the whole 20 on mentorship. So what would you be willing to pay at the start of your journey, or what would you?
So my first ever mentor, I was still working full time, wasn't earning that much money. I paid £3,000. Okay. My next mentor after that, I paid I think like 3,500. My other mentor, I paid £3,000. Another one who I paid to teach me how to like systemize my listing, that was about £2,000. So for me, I know the price that I know the price that I've had to pay to gain the knowledge that I've had to get.
100%.
So it's only right that if people want the knowledge that certain people have,
Yeah.
you're gonna have to pay the price. I feel like a
100%.
lot of people in this generation, like they want the results, but don't wanna pay the price in any way.
Yeah.
But you're paying for someone's time. And to be honest, like if I'm being completely honest, like the money for mentorship, like it's for the time that I put in. Like I'm available, like a lot. Like literally, they message me at 10:30 p.m. I'm replying probably about 10:31.
Yeah.
Like, so I'm giving a lot of my time, and for the 3 months or 6 months or whatever, that's a lot.
Yeah.
So for however much they're paying for mentorship, the value that I'm giving, and especially when they're likely to get a deal at the end of it, it's probably way more than the price I'm charging for mentorship.
100%.
So that's the way I see it.
You mentioned like systemizing and stuff.
Yeah,
So like,
yeah.
so what is systemizing, and how does it benefit you?
So systemizing is key to any business, because if you want to grow your business, you need to have systems in place in order for you to focus on other areas and other tasks. Like one way I systemize it is by having a virtual assistant. So my virtual assistant, she communicates with my cleaners. They check my calendar. My virtual assistant creates a calendar for the whole month for all my cleaners, so they know exactly what property needs to be cleaned at what time. And a lot of the cleaners, they just speak to her, so I don't really have to do too much of that. The only thing I really do is maybe guest communication.
Okay, so is that all you do in your business? Are you not still on the business development side? Are you not still speaking to like deal sources?
Yeah. So that's not all I do. Yeah, I still do things.
You're making it sound too easy. You're
Yeah,
making it sound like I could just step in, get a VA, and then I'm all right.
Okay, cool. You know what? Getting a virtual assistant is not the only way to systemize a business, because I wouldn't say that I fully systemize my business. If I really wanted to fully systemize it, I would give it to a management company for them to manage everything, so I don't do anything with service accommodation. But for me, I can still balance it. So for me, again, my day-to-day life, obviously right now, I've kind of slowed down on the service accommodation again, because I'm trying to diversify it.
Okay.
So again, me and my business partner, we're looking to buy properties. So we've got a couple of projects in the pipeline that we're looking at. So so for me, it's all about diversification. But yeah, in terms of systemization, virtual assistants, channel managers, they're key for systemization.
Okay, so where are you going to be in 5 years? Are you still going to be doing short-term lets? Is that the plan? Is this side of the business going to be sold? Like, are you looking to be acquired? Like, how does it work? Like, what is your plan? Or is it just a case of there was one time where you was working full-time and you was like, no, this is dead, and you've kind of just ended up here? Yeah. Is there a plan?
So no, there 100% is a plan.
Was there always a plan?
There always has been a plan. There always has been a plan. And you know what? For me, service accommodation has been pivotal to the start, the foundation, because all the things that I'm doing with these properties, I'm eventually going to buy properties and do probably the exact same thing. So I'm planning to buy properties, but I'm convert them to HMOs or convert them to short-term lets. So for me, service accommodation was a start, but now it's about acquisition. So now my plan is to start acquiring properties, and then once I've acquired, probably going to scale into bigger developments and things like that. I just really want to expand. I want to obviously buy properties, give them support living, and just literally diversify it. I don't want to just rely on one strategy. And
you make that sound like a cheat code. Buy properties and just give them supported living.
Yeah, because you know what it is? It's that when you realize, again, that's why I say it's more about who you know. When you know people who are in that industry, who are doing very well, and they've kind of shown you the blueprint of how you can create real wealth. Yeah. You know, like for example, there's one investor that I know, like she's made her millions like through her support living company. So she has a lot of support living companies. And honestly, bro, when I saw her bank balance out, I've never seen money like that in my life.
Well, she just showed you just...
No, obviously it was proof of funds for a deal, innit?
Of course,
I was like, bro, how can you have that much money, like
liquid, just
liquid, bro, just there, and that's just one of her accounts.
Yeah.
And that was through support living. I was like, damn, like support living, this is something I need to like explore more. So for me, that's definitely something that I'm gonna look to go into more, not just for the money. Yeah, cool, money is good, but again, I feel like there's a deeper meaning to it. Okay. You know, I feel like, again, I used to work in schools. There was a time I used to work like in a support living sector. So for me, I feel like when you've worked in that industry, you know that you can actually help a lot of people. So I feel like that industry is kind of like, morally it feels right. And I feel like it is a way of the future, to be honest. We're at one of my other properties. I'm just dropping off a few things for the guest, because he came to the property with his family and they found out there was a few things missing, such as new linen and a brush. Normally I can get my cleaners to drop it by, but sometimes I like to meet guests face to face, especially when there's a bit of an issue, just to, you know, kind of get around it. So yeah.
So you didn't mention that this is like 30 seconds from the other one.
Yeah, I forgot to say, this is literally 30 seconds from my other property. And that's another reason why I took on that other property, because I was like, this one does so well, like it's making a lot of money consistently. So I was like, you know what, let me just take another one. So yeah.
What type of property is this one? Because obviously the other one was a 2-bed.
Yeah, the other one's a 2-bed. This one is a 4-bed. So this one can accommodate up to 12 different people.
Okay.
So it's very, very busy for like families, for contractors, especially there's free parking as well. Like it's close to like many things as well. So yeah,
Is there a different type of person that rents this one as opposed to the other one?
Yeah, so the other one is mainly like, it might be a small family, it might be a couple. But with this one, it tends to be like families, big families, contractors, because there's 3 double beds, 2 single beds, there's a sofa bed, there's a garden, there's literally a lot of space. So yeah, this one does really, really well.
Let's do it, man. Key safe and ring doorbell as standard, yeah?
I've got 2 key safes. One's an emergency one. So anything happens with this, because I've had guests who've left the keys inside, and then obviously there's no way to get access to it. But yeah, 2 key safes as well. Why
them ones and not the digital ones?
What, digital key safes?
Yeah.
I don't know. I just started off with them and never had any issues with them. So I was like, you know what, let me just keep it.
Makes sense.
And also I'm Nigerian, I like to save money.
How do you manage all these properties? Like, do you have like a task manager on a computer where you can see everything, or?
So I have, all my properties are connected through Uplisting.
Okay.
Uplisting is my channel manager. So it
Ah,
obviously allows me to see like everything, when there's going to be check-ins, check-outs. And another thing is, because I take a lot of like long-term bookings, I don't do these short-term stays, so it makes it so much easier to manage all of them, because I'm not just changing two nights here, 2 nights here, 2 nights here. For example, these people here for a month, so I know for a month there's literally no headache and things like that. So it does make my life 10 times easier.
So would you recommend that to everyone? Only allow 7-day bookings, 5-day bookings?
No, to be honest, I wouldn't recommend that to everyone, because not everyone is gonna. Some people panic when they don't get bookings. For example, one of my properties is 5 nights minimum. I've had a booking in 3 days. A lot of people will drop it down to 2 nights minimum, but for me, I don't really panic. But I say it's not for everyone, and you've got to gauge the market. You know, one of my properties, which is like very far, it's in like near Dover.
Okay.
That one I do 2 nights minimum, but again, that one I charge £350 a night. So again, I don't need a 7-night stay, because 2 nights is like £750.
So would you say, are you emotionally invested in this?
I don't think they're here, by the way. I would say I'm emotionally invested, and you know what? That can actually be a problem sometimes.
Because you don't seem to make emotional decisions.
You know what is, yeah? I would say to an extent I'm quite emotionally invested in it, because I care a lot about the guests. So if there's a problem, like I take it personal. Like if they have a problem, like for example the linen, they were so unhappy with the linen. I was like, you know what? I wouldn't let my mum sleep in a place with a dirty linen. So why am I going to let another person's mum be sleeping in a place with a dirty linen? So for me, I do care a lot about the guests. It sounds crazy, and I feel like sometimes in business you have to have that balance. But for me, that's just the way I am. Like I do care a lot about the guests that stay in the property. I've got keys here. I've even got a direct booking company, 2-month contract.
Direct booking company, what's that?
Yeah, so basically I have a lot of companies that reach out to me directly. So I don't always rely on like Airbnb, Booking.com. So I've managed to build good relationship with like companies and organizations. So instead of them going through Airbnb, Booking.com, they will call me directly. Now this lady, her contractor stayed in one of my properties in another Southeast London. And she just messaged me saying, do I have an availability for 2 months? Again, this is why it's so important to like
2 months.
2 months. This is why it's so important to build relationships with people.
Yeah.
Because especially when you do go the extra mile. This is why I like to go the extra mile for everyone, because you don't know who's gonna potentially come back in the future. Of
course.
So yeah, it's important to always go the extra mile.
That's not unnatural for you though. I can tell, like in your demeanour and the way you speak to me. Even how you've spoken to me, you're just a genuine person.
Yeah, and I think it's an important trait to have, man. A lot of people, they start making a bit of money, start becoming arrogant and things like that. But you know what? I know how quick money can come and how quick money can go. So for me, like having a bit of money or whatever, like it's just a part of life, man. So stay humble always, man. So always forget these key codes, man.
It's a good problem to have, bro.
And also another thing I have as well, because some of my bins always get forward to the top from guests. I have a waste management company that I work with, so give them a buzz and they will literally just clear all my bins. So all these things, I've got someone coming today, he's gonna clear them all. Okay. So yeah.
Are these things expensive? Like how much do these affect your bottom line, like your profits and everything?
Okay, they're not here. Oh, is your dad here? No, my dad. Okay, cool, no problem. I bought this for your dad. You can tell your dad Ezekiel came. Just brush and linen. Oh. No problem. Right, then take care. Yeah, you too. Cheers.
Was unexpected.
Yeah, but in terms of how much do they cost?
Yeah,
they're not that expensive. And you know what? Yeah, I feel like you can't put a price on things that are going to help your business. For example, the guests, the bins were filled like a lot. So obviously that caused them a lot of problems. So for me, I'm happy to pay £70 for somebody to come and clear the bins.
Yeah.
I can't put a price on that. At the end of the day, guests are paying for an experience. They're paying for a good time, no stress. So for me, paying extra £70 to clear the bins and give them peace of mind, for me is a no-brainer. Thanks for coming along to the property. Yeah, it was nice to give you a glimpse of my life and tell you a bit about my story. So yeah, you can follow me on socials at _Ezzy Property. And yeah, if there's somebody I'm going to nominate to be videoed next, it's my boy Dammy. So yeah, Dammy Property Lifestyle, you're next, bro.